Okay, let's dive in. Today we are looking at some really quite astounding source material.
Yes. Excerpts from the GULAG Archipelago, Chapter 10, The Law Matures.
Exactly. In this deep dive, it's all about understanding how Soviet legal practices evolved, or maybe devolved.
Yeah, you could say that,
Yeah.
particularly focusing on those political trials in the 1920s and 30s. Chillin' stuff.
Absolutely chilling. We've got this incredible detail here covering everything from early attempts at just kicking people out, exile,
This initial phase.
to these huge, dramatic, sometimes completely absurd public trials designed to, what, terrorize? Control.
Control the narrative, certainly,
Yeah.
and instill fear.
So our mission today, yours and mine, is to distill how the Soviet government used its laws, its courts, to just systematically crush anyone they thought was opposition.
And how they literally manufactured a reality for people to believe.
Yeah. You listening are going to hear some genuinely surprising facts, I think. It's a shortcut to understanding a really dark but pivotal moment in history.
And what's fascinating, as you trace it in the sources, is that shift.
Yeah.
From almost clumsy, haphazard control to this highly polished, almost theatrical system of public shaming and condemnation.
Like a stage play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we'll connect the dots. Not just the what, but the really disturbing why behind it all.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Early days, post-revolution.
Right after.
And the source hits us immediately with this, well, darkly funny observation, if the context wasn't so grim.
Lenin's Article 71.
Yeah, the one meant to shoot anyone sneaking back into Russia without permission.
And it was useless.
Completely. Because, as the source puts it, contrary to scientific prediction, nobody was actually trying to storm back in.
Which, raises the opposite question if people aren't breaking in.
What about kicking people out?
Precisely. And the documents show Lenin had this, quote, brilliant idea back in May 1919.
In a secret memo, right? To Dzerzhinsky, head of the Cheka.
Yes. The idea, exiling abroad writers and professors who aid the counter-revolution.
Carefully planned, though. He didn't want any stupidities.
Right. A systematic catching and exiling of what he called the shapeless, jelly-like stain of the old bourgeois intelligentsia. Quite the phrase.
So if they weren't coming in, the focus shifted. People they wanted out. And by late 1922, they actually did it. Loaded up philosophers, writers.
About 300 prominent Russian humanists, the source calls them.
Onto a steamer. The philosopher's ship, it's sometimes called.
Sent off to the European garbage dump. Unbelievable language. People like Enolosky, Melganov.
And more followed in 23. Even Tolstoy's secretary.
Bulgakov, yeah. And even mathematicians. It was a broad sweep.
But this method, exile, it didn't stick, did it?
No. And the reasoning is, well, it tells you everything. They quickly decided it was a mistake.
A mistake. Why?
Because they'd let go good material for the executioner. That's a direct quote.
Chilling.
And they feared poisonous flowers might grow on that garbage dump, meaning these exiles could continue to be influential abroad.
So better to keep them close, where they could be controlled or eliminated.
Exactly. That's the shift. No more exile. It became either the executioner or the archipelago, the Gulag system.
Which sets the stage for the 1926 Criminal Code.
The framework for everything that followed, and specifically Article 58.
The durable dragnet that pulled all political offenses together.
Yes. And with Article 58 locked in, the roundup began in earnest.
And they turned their attention to a new group.
The engineers. The technical intelligentsia, seen as especially dangerous.
Why them specifically?
Because of their firm position in the economy. They actually controlled things, made things run.
And the regime had learned a lesson, too. There was that earlier trial, Oldenburger.
Right, where an engineer was actually defended successfully, acquitted.
And the state saw that as a huge mistake. They couldn't allow that kind of public defiance.
Absolutely not. Which leads us directly to the Shockey case, May to July 1928.
The first big show trial for
A word, the source claims, was literally invented, really, by some interrogator for this case.
It's made up.
Like that.
Apparently, it had no existence in the entire history of mankind before this.
Wow. And the key players? Krylenko prosecuting?
The chief accuser, yes. And Vyshinsky presiding as judge. Names that would become infamous.
53 defendants.
Yeah.
But it didn't quite go according to plan, did it?
No, that was the problem for them. Only 16 fully confessed. 13 kind of waffled.
Wiggled, the source says.
Right, wiggled. And 24 flat out denied guilt. That introduced impermissible discord.
In a show trial. Can't have that.
Krylenko wanted a conflictless trial. smooth, reflecting this supposedly conflict-free socialist society. This messy reality wouldn't do.
So Shakti was a failure in their eyes.
Imperfect, certainly. It showed resistance was possible. They needed something better, more controlled.
So Krylenko starts again, digging a new capacious pit, as the source puts it.
They needed a figurehead, a top engineer to lead this fictional nationwide conspiracy of wreckers. And they first targeted Pelchinsky, a respected mining engineer.
Kuter Pelchinsky,
Yeah.
yes. Pre-revolutionary activist, highly regarded.
And here's a twist I wasn't expecting. He refused.
Completely. He resisted every pressure, died under interrogation, apparently, without signing any sort of nonsense at all.
Wow. Along with a couple of others. Von Meck, Bilichenko.
Yes. They proved it was possible to resist, to not give in, which must have been inconvenient.
A spotlight of reproach, the text says, on those who would confess later.
Exactly. So Krylenko's first attempt failed. He had to find someone else.
Someone brilliant and strong, but also utterly weak and totally pliable. A difficult combination.
Took almost 2 years. Others, like Klinikov, also apparently died resisting.
Until they found Ramzan, director of the Thermal Engineering Institute.
Arrested summer of 1930, and then, incredibly quickly, just 3 months.
They staged the next big show, the Industrial Party trial, the Prom Party trial.
November 25th to December 7th, 1930. This one was meant to be it. The genuine perfection of our justice.
Learning the lessons from Shakti. Fewer defendants this time.
Much fewer. Only 8. Carefully picked to represent the whole country's industry. Easier to manage.
And the most mind-blowing part of this trial, the evidence.
There wasn't any.
None. No documents, no physical proof.
0. No, not one piece, the source emphasizes. The entire case rested on.
Confessions.
Solely on the confessions of those 8 defendants.
But not just mumbled confessions under duress. This was something else.
Oh, completely. Inspired repentance, it's described as. Defendants tearing whole monologues of self-criticism.
Self-exposure, self-flagellation.
Constantly asking for the floor again to add more details they'd supposedly forgotten.
Ramzan even giving summaries, like he was lecturing students.
Yes, as if he were addressing slow-witted students. Terrified something might be left unexplained, someone unexposed. It's utterly bizarre.
Okay, so what were these terrible crimes they were confessing to with such enthusiasm?
Well, this is where it gets properly absurd. The foul-smelling crimes.
Like planning to reduce production growth.
To only 22% annually, when the workers were supposedly ready for 40-50%. Imagine.
So realistic planning was now sabotage.
Basically. Slowing down local fuel development. Using theoretical and economic arguments to delay projects. Which sounds like, actual engineering work.
Even giving lectures on resistance of materials with an anti-Soviet line? How do you even do that?
It beggars belief. But this is where the source is so valuable, it lets us see behind the curtain.
To distinguish the official story from, well, reality.
Exactly. What they called wrecking often looks suspiciously like sensible management or just facing reality.
Like improving fuel efficiency. That was wrecking.
Yes, because it meant less fuel needed to be produced, hitting those targets. See the logic.
It's twisted logic. Upgrading railroads.
Wrecking because bigger locomotives needed new investment, diverting capital.
Get this quote from Fedotov, one of the older engineers, 66 years old. He explained buying cheaper English machines instead of expensive American ones. More profitable, he argued, because Russian labor was cheap. Capital was scarce.
Makes sense.
But that was called wrecking. He literally said if every kopeck must be counted today, then it could be considered wrecking.
Wow. And he also said, what his theory to us is wrecking to you because you are compelled to grab today without any thought for tomorrow.
That cuts right to the heart of it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Short-term, impossible targets versus long-term planning.
Absolutely. And it gets even more bizarre, building better factories.
Factory palaces with high ceilings, good ventilation for workers' well-being.
Stuff insisted on by the People's Commissariat of Labor, their own government body.
That was wrecking too.
Yes, because it was tying up capital, diverting resources from immediate output.
It's insane. And Chernovsky's quote.
Oh, that one's crucial. No wrecking activities were ever necessary. All one had to do was carry out the appropriate actions and everything would happen on its own. Meaning the system was so stressed, the plan so unrealistic that just doing normal engineering or simply failing to meet impossible goals set by incompetent bosses, that was enough to cause problems. That was the wrecking.
So the wrecking was either sensible planning or unavoidable failure under impossible conditions.
Largely, yes. But that wasn't dramatic enough for the public.
Right. They needed bigger crimes.
Right.
Crimes everyone could understand, even the last illiterate, as the source says.
Exactly. Preparing for foreign intervention, taking money from imperialists, espionage.
Assigning cabinet posts in a future government. The details were just fantastical.
Weren't they? France gets Ukraine, Britain gets Caucasian oil, 100,000 emigres poised to return.
The main attack coming from Bessarabia, straight to Moscow.
Right.
Railroads blown up, power stations out.
They even planned to drain marshes to make invasion routes. It's like something out of a pulp novel.
But this narrative, however absurd, was vital for the trial's purpose, wasn't it?
Absolutely crucial. The Industrial Party itself was presented as this formal underground organization.
With a central committee, mobilizing engineers.
But the source clarifies. No formal organization, no conferences, no elections, directives just passed orally, if at all.
Yet Ramzan named 2,000 members.
Resulting in 1 in 7 engineers across the USSR being arrested. Think about that.
It wasn't about a real plot. It was about mass terror.
Yeah.
Demonizing a whole class.
Consolidating power by creating an enemy.
And there's this fascinating human detail that kind of blows up their own narrative.
The defendants' origins.
Exactly. Kirilenko pushes them, and it turns out these big shots of the bourgeois intelligentsia.
All 8 of them.
Came from poor families, sons of peasants, clerks, artisans, self-made men.
Which completely contradicted the propaganda about who succeeded under the Tsar.
And under the Soviets, their kids actually had lower priority for university.
It exposes the lie. We also see that age difference playing out.
The older guys, like Fedotov, being a bit more truthful, sympathetic.
Yes, perhaps less broken, or maybe just seeing the bigger picture after decades of work, longer than the party itself had existed.
While the younger ones, Ramzan, Larachev, glib and shameless, providing the lurid details.
Though even Ramzan had that moment of honesty, the path of wrecking is alien to the inner structure of engineering. A tiny crack showing the pressure.
Which brings us back to the core question. The big riddle. Why did they confess? These intelligent men.
How did they get to this state of inspired repentance?
The source really tries to answer this, doesn't it? Debunks the wilder theories.
Yeah, no Tibetan potion, no mass hypnosis, the popular explanations at the time.
It was simpler. And much grimmer.
It boils down to psychology and brutality. These weren't old-school revolutionaries hardened by czarist prisons.
Their previous arrests, if any, were short, easy. They had no idea what was coming.
They'd never faced genuinely merciless interrogation, Soviet style.
And the methods were horrific.
Yeah.
Freezing cells, hot boxes, beatings.
Weeks of deliberate sleep deprivation. Yakubovich, who tried suicide.
Said that just to be allowed to sleep, neither conscience nor honor matters any longer.
It brings people down completely.
But beyond the physical torture, there was a simpler core method.
The ultimate psychological tool. Do you want to live?
Stark.
They knew they could be shot right there, in the GPU courtyards. Secret police headquarters. No trial needed.
So the deal was perform.
Essentially, it's useful both for you and for us to have you act out a certain drama. A script they, as the experts, had to help write.
And the promise.
No one who behaved has been shot in earlier trials. Play along, confess convincingly. We will, of course, allow you to go on living.
A devil's bargain.
Absolutely. Turn your real efforts, trying to moderate insane plans, fighting for quality, what the source calls their silent and redeeming collusion.
Turn that into crude wrecking and intervention that anyone could understand.
Simplify it for the masses, demonize yourselves.
And in their final statements, they praised the government, claimed they were converted.
While basically begging for their lives, the purpose was crystal clear.
Blame engineers for shortages the system created.
Terrify everyone with invasion scare.
Destroy solidarity among the technical experts.
Keep the intelligentsia weak and divided within itself. Complete control.
And this pattern continues. The Menshevik trial in 31.
Similar script, yes, but the source says it was kind of flat, boring.
The actors lacked enthusiasm.
Apparently. And Yakubovich, a key defendant there, later revealed the whole Union Bureau of Mensheviks was a GPU fabrication. Roles assigned not based on politics, but on government jobs.
Yakubovich's story is incredible. Kirilenko knew him, told him he was innocent.
But said it was his party duty to confess for the trial.
And Yakubovich, after torture, had this strange psychological flip. got angry at the Mensheviks abroad for disowning the victims.
It's complex. He ended up thanking Krylenko for not humiliating him further, demanding simple, noble execution, confessing only to crimes to which I have confessed, a subtle distinction.
So the riddle of these Moscow trials, these leaders confessing, it wasn't magic.
No, it was the fundamental vulnerability of people unprepared for that level of systematic brutality. They lacked a core individual position, a real ideology of opposition to sustain them.
The regime perfected psychological dismantling. Now, the source spends quite a bit of time on Nikolai Bukharin, a major figure.
Seen by many as the brightest mind among the old Bolsheviks who fell.
And Stalin played with him for years, this long death grip.
Kept him in limbo, non-arrest, this exhausting uncertainty. Bukharin's biggest fear, apparently, was being kicked out of the party.
He kept writing letters. Dear Koba, Stalin's nickname.
Endless letters, pleading, even though Stalin had already decided his fate, tested his breaking point by purging his allies first.
And Bukharin's final act, even after humiliation, a hunger strike. That last letter.
Wasn't an expose, it was another plea to a future Central Committee asking to be posthumously restored to the party. Tragic.
His dialogue with Vyshinsky during the trial, that's revealing too.
About accepting the theoretically possible as actual, that philosophical twist that justified everything. If you could have done it under certain pressures, then you did do it.
An utterly terrifying logic. Now, these big Moscow trials were one thing, but Stalin wanted this replicated locally.
Yeah, spread the template. The Kadi case is the example given. Remote village, Ivanovo province.
Local leaders, Smirnov, Stavrov, trying to actually help peasants, pushing back on impossible grain quotas.
Which was seen as sacrilege, rebellion. You didn't question the plan.
Stavrov was arrested, tortured to death, but his confession was used against others.
Yes, the standard playbook. And then there's Vasily Vlasov, head of the local co-ops.
He refused to play along, even when threatened.
Defiantly refused the NKVD, the secret police by then. Stood his ground.
And his crime. It's almost unbelievable.
He found a way to feed the district, despite rules designed to stop that.
Rules prohibiting flour sales, black bread baking, meant to starve people into submitting to collectivization.
Seems so. Vlasov set up bakeries, often in kulak homes, wealthier peasants to bake black bread.
He followed the letter of the law, no direct flour sales, but completely violated its spirit.
The spirit being, starve them. His crime was basic humanity and competence.
Just trying to keep people alive. That was wrecking.
Exactly. At the public trial in Kadi, held in an unfinished building by kerosene lamp.
The defendants took back their confessions.
Yes. Vlasov directly challenged the prosecutor, pointed out the prosecutor himself had implemented the policies Vlasov was accused of wrecking.
And Smirnov, despite torture, just stated the plain truth. His appeal to Stalin about the grain plan.
Nothing. There was no answer. Simple, devastating.
The ending is just horrific. They were sentenced to be shot. Smirnov, Vlasov, others.
And Vlasov's last words, shouted at the party officials in the front.
Come on, you bastards. Why aren't you clapping? Some communists you are.
Chaos erupted, guns drawn. The crowd panicked and fled, convinced not by the justice, but by the rifles.
Wow. So we've traced this evolution, how the Soviet law matured, as the chapter title ironically puts it.
From clumsy exile to these incredibly sophisticated, staged, and utterly devastating public trials.
This material really pulls back the curtain. The manipulation, the sheer absurdity, the psychological destruction.
It really does. And it suggests the riddle isn't some complex mystery.
It's about fear, weakness, the power of a state willing to invent its own reality.
Exactly. Fundamental human vulnerability exploited by absolute ruthless control. Which does make you wonder.
How often does this happen? Maybe not on this scale, but...
How often are narratives fabricated, not because they're true, but because they serve someone's agenda?
Yeah. So what's the takeaway for us listening today? If smart, experienced people could be forced to confess to impossible things.
Not for justice, but purely for political power, for controlling perception.
What does that tell us about the stories we consume now? The narratives we're presented with?
It definitely gives you pause, doesn't it? Makes you question who benefits from the stories we're told.